With 2019 coming to an end, the PlayStation 4 still had a very good year for quality exclusive game releases. However, I have to say that 2019 is probably the weakest year for PlayStation 4 exclusives since 2014. I really don't think it's hyperbole in saying that. I think what this year was missing was that real standout exclusive that came out and took the world by storm, and everyone kind of was in agreement of it being a great game. I think a lot of people were expecting one of these games on this list to be that game. However, it was a little bit controversial, and we'll get into that in a second. However, if you look back in years, 2018 you had God of War and Spider-Man, 2017 you had Horizon Zero Dawn, 2016 you had Uncharted 4, 2015 we had Bloodborne. I don't think this year necessarily had a game at that quality level. However, there was a lot of variety in the game releases and a lot of good stuff. So I don't want you guys to get it twisted in thinking that it wasn't a great year for PlayStation 4 exclusives, because it was. However, the bar has just been set so high that maybe this year fell a little bit short comparatively speaking to years past. However, I still want to highlight the top 10 best PlayStation 4 exclusives of 2019. A lot of great stuff to get into, so let's get started. I alluded to the game at the top, but Death Stranding, I want to start off by talking about that game, because I think going into the release of Death Stranding, this was the game that the majority of people were looking at to really be that standout exclusive of the year, take the gaming world by storm, be accepted by everyone as this masterclass in game development, and I don't really think it was that. A lot of people really enjoyed the game, don't get me wrong. However, just as many people were a little bit off-put by the game. The story in this game is very interesting. The gameplay, on the other hand, is really what's going to turn a lot of people off. However, what I enjoyed about Death Stranding was the fact that Kojima Productions and everybody involved with the game knew that this was going to be a little bit of a risk. They knew they were going a little bit out there, and I've said it before, but ultimately for a gaming to evolve as a medium, there has to be risks taken, and not all of those risks are going to pay off. However, now you can ascertain the elements that worked in Death Stranding and implement that into future games. Not only just games done by Kojima and his team, however, a lot of other studios can look at what worked with Death Stranding, implement that to their game, and ultimately refine those elements as well. You can see Kojima being a little bit of a guinea pig in this sense. However, credit to him for trying something a little bit different, and there's still a lot of remarkable qualities about Death Stranding. Again, the narrative is super interesting, the world is beautiful, and visually the game is stunning, and the game, if nothing else, is going to be nothing like you've played in the past. So I think for that standpoint, it does something really well, and it's a game you really have to talk about when you do take a look at the best exclusives of the year. Alright, next up, another highly anticipated game that maybe wasn't at the quality level as the top exclusives that have ever been released on the PlayStation 4, but I still thought Days Gone was a really good game by Sony Bend Studio. Days Gone had that unfortunate fate where it was a brand new IP being done by a studio that wasn't familiar with doing a lot of PlayStation 4 games or even big budget PlayStation games. Bend Studio for a long time were working on portable games like Uncharted Golden Abyss, and yeah, that game was technically impressive, but not at the level of a big budget PS4 game. Days Gone was their first foray into that, and I think they did a really good job, all things considered. But again, it hurt because they were going up against the standard that was set in previous PS4 open world exclusives, even in a game like Spider-Man. Then you have exclusives in general like God of War, and it was the next major exclusive after those two games. And it's like, alright, yeah, it might not be that great, however, I still thought it was a great game. It's filled with content, and Bend Studio has been doing a great job in keeping the game updated after its release, and adding new content, giving reason to go back and play the game. The story is pretty good, although there are elements I wasn't as fond of as others, but I think altogether, if you look at the game as a whole, it is a quality game. Great visuals, as is to be kind of expected with these big budget first party exclusives. It's a great game, and at this point you can get it for south of $20. I would highly recommend you to try it out, and again, a game with a lot of content to boot. Next up, I think something that Sony did really well this year also was put out a couple of exclusives that they priced accordingly, and the first of the two that I want to mention is Concrete Genie. Concrete Genie is a really good game done by Pixel Opus. It's a game that visually looks stunning, and the story itself is very engaging and something really easy to get into. It's set in a small town named Denskill, which has been mostly abandoned and polluted. A young boy named Ash regularly doodles in his notebook. A group of bullies steal his notebook, rip out the pages, and scatter them throughout the city, and you go on a quest to recover these pages and bring life back to his hometown. It's got an awesome art style, and it's not one of these super serious games that you have to think super hard about or anything like that. You can just boot it up, play it, and enjoy it for what it is. And again, it was released at a budget price point of $30, and I think that did the game a lot of good. Whereas if the game was a $40, $50, God forbid $60 game release, it wouldn't have been received all too well, but at a $30 price point, that really accentuated the qualities of Concrete Genie in a game that I was a big fan of. Also, an exclusive that saw a $30 release was the remake of MediEvil. Now, MediEvil surprisingly got a kind of a lukewarm reception from a critical standpoint. However, all the gamers that played the game seemed to really enjoy it, and I was definitely in that boat. I thought MediEvil was a great remake. Yeah, it retained some of the fundamental elements that are a little bit dated from the original MediEvil, but that's the point of a remake. It is a little bit nostalgic. It does rely on that characteristic a little bit. However, it's also an enjoyable game for a brand new audience. Visually, it looks a lot better, and another game that, much like Concrete Genie, yeah, if it was $40, $50, it wouldn't probably be as good of a buy, but it was released at a budget $30 price point, and I think it has to be judged with that in mind, and I think MediEvil did a great job in retaining that nostalgia, really catering towards people that played MediEvil back in the day, but also being a compelling enough game for new consumers, and I thought it turned out really well. And people have been clamoring for MediEvil to make a comeback. Yeah, I would have loved to see a brand new game from the ground up, but this will have to do for now, and hopefully sometime down the line, we do get that next iteration of MediEvil. Next up, this is a PlayStation 4 exclusive for the rest of 2019 and going on into early 2020, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. We have been informed that the game will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch, but as of the end of 2019, still a PS4 exclusive, so it's going to qualify for this list. And hey, if I get another chance to talk about Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3, if you guys are familiar with me and this channel, you know I'm going to take it. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel is a phenomenal set of JRPGs. Yes, from a visual standpoint, it's not anything to write home about. The gameplay is your standard turn-based fare, however, it does have some really good music, and hey, good music in a turn-based JRPG, that goes a long way. But the strength of Trails of Cold Steel as a franchise and Legend of Heroes in general is the character development and story and world building. Those elements are just so strong, not just from a JRPG standpoint, but just gaming in general. Some of the strongest and most well-developed characters that you're gonna find in any game. Now, obviously, Trails of Cold Steel has the distinct advantage of being these grandiose, lengthy JRPGs with a lot of dialogue, but that dialogue adds a lot of investment from the player to these characters, and the story just unfolds brilliantly. Trails of Cold Steel 3, another continuation on top of Trails of Cold Steel 2, and obviously, if you're getting into this game, I would recommend you to play the first two games, which also released on the PlayStation 4 this year. They're available on other platforms, but for now, Trails of Cold Steel 3 only on the PS4, so it definitely qualifies for this list. Next up, I want to give a shout to Catherine Full Body Edition. Big fan of this game. The only issue I had with it was the fact that it was released at a $60 price point, and it was a game that originally released on the PS3 back in 2010. However, Full Body does have to get a lot of credit for adding a lot of content on top of the original game. You've got an entirely new route to go into. However, I did think it would have been better at a $40 price point, but hey, the game is now available for $30 regularly, so we don't even have to argue about that. What Catherine is a very quirky, Japanese puzzle-based, story-driven game. A lot of cool gameplay elements in this one, but definitely the standout is the story. The puzzles are really well done as well, and if you want to forego that element of the game, you can play on the easiest difficulty, and it's a breeze, and you can enjoy just the story. And again, this one does add a brand new route as well. Very quirky in game design and storytelling. And if you've never played Catherine, the Full Body Edition is definitely the version to get, and I would highly recommend you to check it out, especially again because it is available for a really good price now. Next up, we have a game that I was personally very much looking forward to, and that is Judgment. Judgment was the latest game from the Yakuza team. However, it's a brand new story starring a brand new character, and the great thing about Judgment is that this is a great entry point. You don't have to play any of the prior Yakuza games. You can start off with Judgment, and even better is it was a game that was built ground up for the PS4. A lot of these other Yakuza games that have been coming out on the PS4, Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami, they were originally designed for previous platforms, so visually they're not quite up to par. Judgment doesn't have that issue at all. It is a stunning game from a visual standpoint, and on top of that, you've got English voiceovers in the game, so yes, I know that might sound absolutely sinful for some people. How could you play a Yakuza Studio game with English voiceovers? But there is that audience that doesn't want to play a game with Japanese voiceovers, and offering that option to consumers I thought was a great idea and really opened up the game to a Western audience. Now, commercially, it didn't do gangbusters, however, but it did turn out to be a great game with a lot of great elements and all of that aforementioned stuff coupled together with the already good gameplay that is present in these games, and it turned out to be a high-quality title and definitely one of the best of the year. Next up, I know that this game isn't going to be up everyone's alley, but MLB The Show 19 still deserves a mention. If you want a quality baseball game on consoles, MLB The Show 19 is the route to go, and MLB The Show in general has probably been one of the most consistent franchises that PlayStation has had to offer. Now, this is one of the final times that the game will be a PlayStation 4 exclusive. MLB The Show is going multi-platform, and that's probably best for everyone involved. Really, a baseball game is something that every platform owner should be able to play. It's just one of those genres that, yeah, you might have an Xbox, but baseball is something you enjoy and you want a game based on that. Why shouldn't you have the option to check it out? I'm all for first parties creating compelling, unique games, but baseball is an established sport that I feel like every platform should be able to enjoy MLB The Show. Regardless, MLB The Show 19 wasn't exclusive to PlayStation 4, and if you're a fan of baseball games, it's really the standard. Next up, we haven't mentioned a ton of PlayStation VR games, but I do want to give a shout to Sony London Studios' Blood and Truth. Blood and Truth, if you want a high-octane, action-heavy VR title, this is the one to get. It was a really well-done game, and it was based on the London heist level in PlayStation VR Worlds, and London Studio actually initially envisioned the game to be an installment in the Getaway series. Obviously, it developed beyond that, but it still turned out to be a great game. The game itself is a first-person action shooter, and you play as Ryan Marks, a former Special Forces soldier who must save his family from a London crime boss. Okay, so the setup to the story isn't anything completely outrageous. It's pretty simple, but that really works for Blood and Truth. Again, action-packed. Think of a big-budget action movie in VR. It works even better, and it was a good one. If you have PlayStation VR, this is definitely one to check out, and it's honestly one of the best VR games that has been released and a legit system seller for that platform. And lastly, I want to give a mention to a game that didn't get a lot of attention when it came out back in November, but Spirit of the North was a great downloadable PlayStation 4 title, and it's a single-player third-person adventure game inspired by breathtaking and mysterious landscapes of Iceland with various pieces of Nordic folklore. The game purposefully has no dialogue or narrative that's completely slapped you in the face. Think of something like Flower or Journey or That Game Company title. It's really reminiscent of that from an artistic presentation standpoint, and I thought it worked rather well. Is it absolutely perfect in game design? No, but I thought a lot of the presentation elements were really strong. The visuals are stunning, and it worked out really well. Hardly got any attention. There aren't even a lot of reviews for it online, but as a $25 budget release, thought it was a pretty good one and definitely worth a look. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, while I might have been a little bit negative towards the PS4 exclusive lineup in the beginning of this video, I still thought it was a pretty good year with a lot of variety in the game releases. You want something that's a grandiose new experience that's very unique. Death Stranding has that covered. You want a good open world title? Days Gone will be for you. You want cheaper games? You've got Concrete, Genie, and MediEvil. You want an epic JRPG? Trails of Cold Steel 3. You want a quirky Japanese game? Catherine. You want something with mystery and intrigue? You've got Judgment. You want a great sports game? MLB The Show 19. A cool VR title? Blood and Truth. And then again, a pretty interesting downloadable game in Spirit of the North. A lot of variety in the releases. I don't think we had that slam dunk, absolutely masterclass of a game that we've had in recent years. Again, when you look at God of War, Uncharted 4, Bloodborne, these games were on another level and are really why people associate the PlayStation 4 with having the best games on the market. I don't think we had a game at that level, but we definitely had some great ones. And these 10 are definitely titles that I think you guys should have in your library. That's going to conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.